Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Catalyzing Conversation. My name is Todd Nilsson, and I am one of the volunteer organizers for the Catalyzing the Future event, part of what this video series is all about, and it's intended to give as a preview to some of the great thinkers and ideas that are going to be throughout the day on September the 30th. We have this event set up as a global, free, and live streaming event. And what's exciting about it is we're going to actually have 3 concurrent live streams going on at once. And those are all going to include both keynote interviews as well as panelists. It's going to be an incredible amount of ideas and opportunities to exchange questions and thoughts with the panelists. And we are going to be streaming live both on YouTube as well as on Facebook for this event. So hope you'll be able to join us. I have with me in the studio here today my dear friend Alhir, who is the founder of the event, and I'm sure he would be only too humble about not wanting to be known as that, but he's the guy who really has kind of made it happen. He was the catalyst for it, so to speak. And Mariya Radysh, who is going to be talking with us a little bit today about AI and artificial intelligence and some of her work about intentional adaptability. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring them both into the channel here for the discussion.
Excellent.
Welcome, guys.
How are you, Todd? How are you, Mariya?
Great. How are you guys?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for making the time.
My pleasure.
So thank you so much. So I've been very excited about this conversation. I'm just going to jump right into it, if you will, because I've been very excited about this conversation. It is a privilege and honor to have Mariya with us, and she's going to be part of the event, as Todd mentioned. So tremendously grateful for the opportunity to connect here before the event and during the event. A little bit of background on Mariya: keynote speaker, very, very vibrant keynote speaker, multiple TEDx talks, so tremendous contribution around the world from that vantage point. Nearly a dozen university degrees, so extremely broad and deep in what she brings forward, and intentional adaptability and what have you. So if you don't know Mariya, don't miss the opportunity to get to know her. So all around, thank you, Mariya, for joining us.
Thank you so much for this amazing introduction. I'm humble. Thank you.
You're most welcome, and I haven't done you justice by any stretch, so I'll say it that way. So topic of AI. What immediately kind of comes to your mind, Mariya, when you think of AI?
I get excited every time I see any piece of news in regards to progress with artificial intelligence. But I'm also getting concerned more and more because when we talk about artificial intelligence, we talk no longer about units that, there are 2 types of AI. So the type that, let's say, you put formulas into or data into and it processes it. And there is artificial intelligence that is self-learning, self-developing. So with that second type of artificial intelligence, I'm quite worried that we still perceive it as just another piece of tech, but it's not just another calculator, it's not just another vacuum cleaner that we're developing. I believe that we're creating a new life form, or rather even different forms of life with working on this type of AI. So I think we really need to pay attention to this and be more considerate. What is it we're doing?
So you say I think of it as a different form of life. I'm sure our viewers are sort of thinking in their heads about all kinds of science fiction shows they know of where there's artificial intelligence that can be interacted with almost as if it was another human being. But are you talking about? Everything that I've kind of been reading about artificial intelligence is about. We need to think of it as a different kind of intelligence than human intelligence, but that doesn't make it any lesser or greater than us.
I agree completely. We shouldn't feel either superior to it, or we shouldn't think of it as superior to us. I think the main goal is to coexist and to collaborate, and Yeah, not to become just a stepping stone in the evolution of AI.
Yeah. So there's keywords that grab me in your description. Forgive me if I interrupted you, Todd. I don't know if you had another thought to share.
No, please.
I love your description of a life form, if you will, because as I look around, I mean, and I love the word you use, the word considerate. If are we considerate of what we naturally would classify as a life form to even really begin to muster the humanity and the reality of dealing with another life form? I mean, where are we as a society, do you see us, Mariya, relative to a life form?
I think many of us perceive humans as a god in comparison to artificial intelligence. So we're playing God with artificial intelligence, but I think we should be treating it as our child, and it's a very, very different type of relationship, very different dynamic. In particular, because when we look at a child and when we look into what makes it who it is and what it is, there are two components: nature and nurture. And the same with artificial intelligence as well. There are the same two components, nature and nurture. So in particular, nature falls into what this AI is programmed to do, because there's a big difference whether it is a nanny programmed to care for a child, or a unit programmed to walk a dog, or a unit programmed to make dinner, or if it's a unit program to learn how to be a weapon.
Yeah.
So what is it exactly created for is crucial. But I think as important it is who exactly programs it.
Yep.
Because if creators lack communication skills, if they lack integrity, if they lack ethics, what do you think is going to end up programmed into that artificial intelligence unit? Exactly that.
Yeah.
And I would like to quote my dear friend Philippe Guichard. He's a brilliant thought leader and industrial designer. He said that artificial intelligence have to be programmed only by enlightened human beings. And I really love this quote. I really love how he said it, that only enlightened human beings should be allowed to program any type of artificial intelligence.
So
yeah.
I can't resist jumping in. Forgive me, Todd. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to say I love that, because I think I'm a follower of I don't know if you run any of his writing, Damian Williams, who does he's an AI ethicist, and does a blog called Technical. We wanted to try to get him for the show. He unfortunately had another event as well, but I think in a lot of his writings he talks about how we need to be really careful about who's actually programming the AI. That the algorithms that are created can have inherent biases in towards race, towards different groups, and like without having, like you said, enlightenment. I think that's really important, and maybe that the forms that those enlightenments take are, I don't know if that's a proper use of enlightenment, but the forms that those take would be getting as many perspectives involved with the creation, with the nature side of that AI. That sounds. I love that expression and that quote that you offered.
It's very rich. Did you have a thought, Mariya, before I sort of ask a question or probe deep, a little bit further?
No, I just wanted to say that this is the nature part. So we need to be mindful of what we program AI to do. Because once again, there is a difference whether, let's say that artificial intelligence is trying to trick us into buying something, and this is what it's learning, and this is what it's doing, how to trick a human being to feel certain things, so they're more susceptible, they're more inclined to make a purchase.
Yep.
Or if we're talking about artificial intelligence, like I said, who's made to be a nanny and to be very caring and to raise a child, and to give warmth and love and communication. So very, very important what exactly we're programming artificial intelligence to do. and to learn and to in what area to develop. And as important it is who exactly programs it. So it all falls into that nature part. And the nurture part is also maybe even more important. It's debatable, but it could be because if we look at human development, there are genetics. There is when a child is born, there are certain genetics, so the nature. But how the child is raised and how the child is treated makes all the difference. It changes a lot of things. So if there are certain predispositions, they might go away and vice versa. So when it comes to nature, it also has two factors in it. One of them is how we treat it. And this is something that I mentioned already and we touched on, that we shouldn't be either acting as a god to it. We shouldn't be seeing it as a servant. We should be seeing artificial intelligence as our collaborator and a companion. I would say a companion, lifelong companion. But it's also very important how we treat each other as well. So what example do we set for it? For instance, there was a very interesting experiment where I think it was Microsoft. They released AI called Tai or Tay. I think that it was an acronym for thinking about you or something in those lines. So they released it onto Twitter to communicate with Twitter users. And that AI was supposed to be an equivalent to an 18-year-old American girl. So the idea was that AI would learn from users how to communicate and would communicate back. So they had to shut it down within 16 hours because it became very aggressive, sexually charged, even genocidal. And, there is no question that it all learned of all of that from Twitter users, from us, from human beings. And this is what it learned and this is what it developed into. So it's very, very important to set a right example. And after that, they ran another experiment. They launched another artificial intelligence unit in less than a year later. That lasted for a couple of years because they programmed for it to be politically correct. But I wanted to highlight that unit became very judgmental.
Interesting.
So when it was asked questions, it was quite judgmental. So once again, this is what it picked up from us. Jumping to conclusions and being judgy and things like that. So that experiment was better. Like I said, I think it ran for a couple of years on different platforms, but still they had to take it down and not necessarily saw it as a success, as a progress, but not as a success.
So it's intriguing, the distinction between nature and nurture is very powerful. And the distinction between, how we program it and then the creator, the relationship to a creator is the picture that you're painting is extremely powerful. The question that I come to very, very quickly is, are we mature enough? Are we enlightened enough? Have we transcended, as I like to say, people aren't good or bad, they just are. There's parts of our nature that are very powerful in a particular context, and there's others that are less powerful in a particular context. And powerful can be more humane, more friendly, more distinct in terms of what's needed. Mariya, from what you see, are we enlightened enough to be able to have access to some of what we're describing? Are we mature enough?
Yes, I wish I could say yes.
And that's why I ask, is because I think you integrate so many pieces. I mean, if you say, I wish, what are we missing? What are we missing as what are we not looking at or not examining enough, Mariya?
I think we're not being human. I think that we don't know how we function ourselves, even such things as our brain and our body. We don't know how to be at most adaptable, which is very important. And when it comes to adaptability, it's not just to be adaptable to survive, but to be adaptable to thrive, at least in this decade, at least in 2020. So I think that we urgently really need to start taking ourselves to the next level. And to do that, we need to learn how to human. What makes us human? What makes it amazing to be a human as well? Because I hear some experts basically saying that, being human is not good enough. And it's inevitable that we have to emerge with artificial intelligence and become the one and all of those things. I wouldn't see it as a necessity in the near future. I mean, at the end of the day, if we're talking about living forever, and I would love to live for maybe 1,000 years because I really love learning. I love to experience a lot of things in my lifetime. I would love to live for longer, but I know that within this decade, a lot of experts say that we would be able to 3D print any organ that we need. And that by 2050, most likely, we would be able to buy ourselves a whole new body, a whole human body. So it comes down to a matter of how to transfer our mind from old body into a new body. And I'm sure they'll figure it out. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, our species is amazing. Seriously, I love our species. We can figure anything out. So if I had a chance, if I had a choice between being transferred into a human body, a new human body, or into a mechanical one, I would go with the first option. In particular, because as a human, you can experience a lot of things, like rush of the wind and taste of the food, a kiss, listening to the music. I mean, it just really picks your soul up, and it just gives you that really great buzz when you hear a song that you love. So there's just so many things that this body is capable of. And it's not necessary to have all the information in the world packed into it. In fact, I think there is a huge downside to it, because if we do have some sort of chips where we have all the information available to us, we could lose taste for life, to be honest, because if we know everything, there is nothing else to discover.
Yeah.
And as we learn, like, for example, there's a big difference if you download knowing a second language into your brain, or if you're learning it, because when you're learning it, you're rewiring your brain in certain ways. So if you just download that vocabulary, you don't transform your brain as such. So that necessary work is not being done in order to grow and to adapt and to transform. Or for instance, my dad put me into music school for 8 years.
Yeah.
And I liked certain aspects of it. I hated certain subjects. I really loved other subjects. And I couldn't understand why he did it, because he never thought of making me into a musician or me actually going into the industry at all. And only later I realized that, in particular, he chose piano for me as a musical instrument, is because when we move our fingers, especially our thumb, it affects our brain. So it actually helps our brain to develop in certain ways, to develop certain parts of the brain. So he put me into music school, and I hated playing piano, to be honest.
Yeah.
Although I was at the top of the class, I actually hated it. The purpose wasn't to become the greatest musician. The purpose was to work on my brain, to transform my brain, to transform certain parts of it. That was the purpose, the reason behind it. So the same here is that if we have this opportunity to download languages into our brain, or skills to play piano, it defeats the purpose, to be honest. That it eliminates that learning process that actually helps us to grow and to step up into the next level. So very curious how that's going to be dealt with and thought about. Yeah.
So there's a few distinctions that you're calling out, Mariya. In particular, I love the way that you describe how to human. It's not how to be human. as a noun, but it's how to human as a verb. That's a very, very powerful distinction as kind of we're talking about the I'll say the substrate of the question around artificial intelligence and being creators. I would love, I would love your insights when you say how to human. It's so powerful. It kind of, I don't know, it hit, and respectfully, I would be very interested in how it hits other people. For me, when you say how to human, it hits me at my core versus how to be human. What are your, please share what drove you to say it that way, express it that way.
Unfortunately, I wasn't the one to come up with that expression. I actually heard it from somewhere, and it's been used by many, many, many people, but I just really loved it. Like you said, it just strikes you to the core. And I think the difference between how to be human, how to human is about adaptability to survive, merely to survive, and adaptability to thrive. So to be human is to adapt to survive and to exist. But to human is to adapt to thrive. So to be happy and healthy and fulfilled and enjoy life, to have life in years and not just years in life.
Yep.
So this is what how to human is about. How to adapt so you're happy, healthy, fulfilled, and all of those things, and really enjoying your life.
And perhaps, and I've heard it in other places, but the way you're describing it, it's richer. And maybe, maybe I'm picking up on some of the subtleties about enlightenment and transcendence and being creators, because I don't think, respectfully to most people, I don't think they think about their creation in that way. Whether, one of the things I've said about respectfully, and I have lineage in the business world as well as the technology world for me personally. But one of the big distinctions that I called out very quickly is we are creators when we're building this technology, whether it could be anything, right? It could be a sculpture as a technology. Gary Hamel calls management as a technology, but we're creators. People don't think about themselves as creators. They really don't. How do you help people recognize they're creators, Mariya?
I guess just to keep explaining it and talk about it and discuss it and see what others think about it. Because one of the things that really worries me is that, like I said, at the moment, it seems that we think ourselves as a god for artificial intelligence. Well, it's really, really, really important to understand that we're not, that we should see ourselves as a parent at this point in time and act accordingly.
How many, I reflect on, if you look at the experience with the people that you interact with, how many percentage-wise, I'm just thinking out loud, truly embrace the notion that you're a parent to your creation versus someone who's going to seize that creation for some benefit or for some gain, if you will, some advantage, versus truly being a parent to it in the way that a parent would care for a child, right? And would cultivate something like that. It's absolutely intriguing to me as you're describing it.
I haven't heard anyone saying it like that. I haven't heard anyone saying that we should parent artificial intelligence and that there it is our child.
Yeah.
It is something that I believe should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
to answer your question, not many.
Not many. Well, so I'm gonna speculate, and I'm gonna speculate in the following sense. And this is one of the key things, quite honestly, that when you and I connected, the degree of humanity with which you relate to your creation, whether it's your work, whether it's your business, right, whatever it is, whatever it may be, your art, is very humane. Most people are not humane with their creation. They look at their creation as a means to an end versus an end in itself. That's a radically different relationship. And I'll say selfishly, that's what, again, resonated with me when I first met you, is you truly relate differently to your creation versus, a parent-child relationship versus someone who wants to control their creation. I don't know if anyone has ever said that to you in that way.
No, thank you. I think this is one of the reasons why skill of empathy needs to be taught. So it's one of the things that should be taught to us from early age, how to be empathetic. And empathy is a skill. it is a skill. It can be taught, and it should be taught to us. So if it is cultivated in us, I think that we will start doing things very differently and perceive things very differently, and in particular, treat every creation of ours very differently, with the respect that it deserves and care that it deserves as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that distinction, because those are, if our technology is going to learn by how we treat each other, what is it going to learn? To the examples that you gave.
Yeah.
If I'm sorry, you're going to say something, Mariya.
I just wanted to say, as an example, for instance, when we look at the parent and a child, if even if a parent tells a child 1,000 times, for example, that smoking is bad, but they themselves keep smoking all the time, what do you think the child will pick up?
Yep.
They will pick up that smoking habit. So children copy behavior from their parents and from other people around them. It's the same with artificial intelligence. You can program, for example, for it to be politically correct and things like that, but it will still be learning from our behavior, how we treat ourselves, how we treat others in particular. So I think it's really, really important, and maybe even more important, to give that great example, good example, to artificial intelligence, by really stepping up in regards to how we treat each other, even how we talk to ourselves. And I think I strongly believe that everything starts within. So if you become more patient to yourself, if you become more loving to yourself and more caring to yourself and more understanding to yourself, like if you start understanding how your brain functions, why do you have emotions, how to deal with emotions, how to process certain things, how to grow, how to transform. Once you learn about all those things, you start enjoying life much, much, much more, and you start functioning very differently. So if we start caring more about ourselves, I think inevitably we would be more caring towards others as well. And that would actually eliminate probably every single global problem that there is at the moment out there. So yeah, the first step I think that everyone can do is start taking better care of themselves and to start learning more and more about how to be a human and how to human, about all those both things. Yeah. So that would be probably the first step.
Most definitely. And really, when you emphasize care for yourself, you're not telling people to be selfish, but rather to truly care for yourself. And I think there's a key distinction that people, really need to separate. So I have a very key, this question is a long philosophical question by every stretch, if you will. But as you look at the world, and as you talk about the distinction between nature and nurture, and I'm sure we've all heard the adage between the frog and the scorpion, if you will, and as they're crossing the river, which is stronger, nature or nurture, and how does that relate to the future of AI, and how should we think about it as creators?
It's so hard to say. Both are so very, very important. If the nature part with artificial intelligence is done properly, then the nurture part is going to be much, much, much easier. The more mistakes we make with the nurture part, that is what we program AI for, and especially who programs it, the more mistakes we make with that, the more difficult it's going to be to fix those mistakes and to I don't think we're going to end up as a Terminator scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a possibility. I don't think we would, but the more thoughtful we are with the first part, the easier for us it would be to do the second one. But they both very, very important, and which one is more important is quite debatable. I guess it more depends on what kind of artificial intelligence unit we're talking about. So what is it was programmed to do initially? If it's if it's a unit to care and to love and to nurture, then probably genetics part is not that important. But if it's AI that could be dangerous, then the genetics part would be the most important part to begin with. So yeah, it is debatable, and I think it just greatly depends on what kind of artificial unit we're talking about.
Yeah. And the question that runs in the back of my mind continuously is, are people truly asking these difficult questions? And are we engaging in a critical way to explore these questions? Because they do have ramifications for generations, for the future. I mean, do you encounter enough conversation happening around these aspects? No.
I don't, and this is so sad. I think many of us still perceive AI as something from movies and TV series and books, or something from a very, very distant future. This is how many think, and they don't think of it being real enough yet. So it's all very sci-fi and very futuristic in their minds. Well, actually, it's not. It's already here. And I really would love to see more conversations happening. And I think it's quite important to decide as a species with artificial intelligence, what is it exactly we want to achieve? Why are we creating it in the first place? What is that main goal? Because at the moment, it just looks more like meddling with different things and trying out different things. And I really would love to see more consistency, I guess, and just have a clarity with our goals, what exactly we're doing with it. You know that quote from Alice in Wonderland, where Alice asked the cat which path she should take. And he asked her, well, where are you going? And she said, I don't know. And he said, well, then it doesn't matter which road you take, because you don't know where you're going.
Yes.
So I think very important to finally make a decision. I think it's overdue to make that global decision. Where are we going with this?
There's, I want to call this out very specifically, and this goes back to the humanity piece of respectfully your personality and the way that you engage the topic. You've referred, I think twice now, if not a third time, but definitively at least twice, you referred to us as a species. It takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of humanity for us to separate ourselves from ourselves in order to examine ourselves in such a way that we can improve. And I mean, just respectfully to Mariya, to Todd, to others who are listening, I'm not sure how many people actually have that degree of enlightenment, to be honest with you, that they can talk about us as a species. They look at us as the creators, the ultimate species. So I'm very interested. I mean, so respectful. I mean, it takes a lot to be able to do that. What wisdom can you offer the world to help us step back and look at ourselves in that light?
Education. One of the things, the main thing that I'm working on is that I'm conducting research and I'm putting together insights into how to human. What are the most important pieces of the puzzle of being a human being? And in particular, in my second TEDx, I was saying that sleep is one of the most important parts. And the very first chapter in my book is dedicated to sleep. So if I could go back, the way I'm writing those things is the way I'm thinking that if I could go back into the past, and if I could talk to myself and explain myself, younger self, certain things, what would be those things, and what would be the first piece that I would teach myself? And learning how to sleep is that first piece, to be honest. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because sleep is very underrated, although it's probably the most powerful medicine and the best and the easiest thing that we can do for ourselves as a human being. But we're not taught about those things, and we're not taught about other things either. I mean, there's a lot of information in particular on personal development, but it's all very scattered. There's so much of it, and it's very difficult to pull it all together. I believe that the fundamentals really should be taught to us from young age. The earlier the better. So we would understand what are the basics, what are the principles behind being a healthy and happy human being. Then if we want to learn more, then we can sign up for courses and go find mentors, consultants, coaches, listen to podcasts and read books and watch TEDx talks and things like that. Because yes, there are so many of those things now, but they're so scattered. And when we listen to a TEDx talk, or when we read a book, or when we listen to an interview on a podcast, it makes sense when we encounter it. But afterwards, most of it just airs out because it didn't click perfectly. It's just the way our brain works, that when we get new information, it has to click well with what we already know. If it doesn't click, then brain thinks that it's not important, that it's not accurate, and it kind of erases it. So if we were to understand those basics, those principles, those fundamentals from both physiology and psychology, how to be a thriving human being, if we were taught all of those things, then we would be able to learn much better whatever new pieces of information we come across. And there's going to be more information. I mean, we're already overwhelmed, but there's so much research and so many studies and so many opinions that come out every single day that we need to learn how to learn. And in order to absorb it and to use that information, we really need to understand the fundamentals that underneath it, because otherwise it's like building a high-rise without the foundation. You can, if you don't have a foundation and you start putting bricks together, the building will just fall apart. So it's very, very important to have those fundamentals as foundation for the building. And then every new piece of information that comes in could be a brick, for us to build that high rise.
Very, very well described. It's very powerful. I respectfully, firmly believe, children have a lot of wisdom, but they can't communicate that wisdom. It's as if we have these fundamentals and then we can't communicate them as children. We're cultivated and we're nurtured and we're conditioned throughout life in many negative ways that allow us to be less human, that force us to be less human. And then we have to rediscover them. And so we have to tap into, respectfully, the wisdom of children and what they know so much. And I think that's a missed opportunity for us to better understand children, understand ourselves, understand society, understand the ramifications of AI, amongst other technologies. So,
there's this buzzword neuroplasticity. And one of the things that we can learn from kids is how to be curious. How to be curious and how to sleep well, because neuroplasticity actually has two stages for it to occur. That you need to acquire information, and then you need to get a good rest, either deep rest or sleep, in order to that neuroplasticity part actually to happen. So 2 things we definitely can learn from children: how to be curious and how to sleep. But the thing is that our brain is the way it's wired at this point is that up to 25, we're absorbing things, we're learning things, and after 25, we're supposed to implement them. This is why, while neuroplasticity is possible through our entire life, unfortunately, after 25, it slows down. That process slows down because the way nature, the way we evolved was to, up to 25 to learn, after 25 to implement.
Well, very well said. So I want to respect your time, definitely. And likewise, Todd, I know I respectfully thank you for giving me the time to seize the time with Mariya. I always enjoy the conversations. I think people could really benefit from, definitely listening to the conversation that's forthcoming on the 30th with the panel with you. I can only imagine where the topic's going to go. But I just want to say thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to catch up before the event. Likewise, Mariya.
My pleasure. And I'm so excited about the 30th. I'm very, very excited. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'll have to get up at 1 a.m. to be a part of it. That's how excited I am.
We appreciate it.
That's how much I look forward to it.
No, definitely. Definitely. I couldn't imagine the event without you. So thank you so much, Mariya. And definitely, like I said, I want to respect your time by all means. And we're looking forward to it. And, and by all means, Todd, I hand it back off to you. Otherwise, I'll be here all night with Mariya. And I want to respect our time. So definitively.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mariya. And thank you, Sai. I am just going to go ahead and wrap up here. Everyone, as Sai said, I mean, we've covered a great deal of very interesting topics today with Mariya on AI, ranging from how to human and creating empathy to models of AI, whether we look at it as gods or as parents. Really key questions that have showed up in our literature for a long time. Let's keep engaging with these conversations. Would love to hear your comments and ideas. And would love to know what they are in the comments, either or by joining us on September the 30th for Catalyzing the Future. You can sign up at catalyzingthefuture.com, and we'll hope to see you on Wednesday. Take care.